Hi, welcome to the bathtub. It's the old masturbator, Scott Bradfield. You know where you are. This is the old masturbator's parakeet, Dodo, the masturbating parakeet, and she's got a new. We got her a new dealy bop up there. We call her Taxi, because when Dodo was little, she wouldn't come to our fingers, but she would jump on the taxi and we could carry her around the house, and that was her mode of transportation. And then she learned to chew it into pieces, and now we go through two of those a month probably. And everything else is good here. We're going to try to do a few quick ones here. So I put on a nice shirt. I washed my face, and I almost combed my hair. I'm going to do like 3 or 4 of these, I think, because I got to try to do a few things at once. We're going to try to do one of these like top 10 things, and I actually think I've got it down to top 10. It's totally bogus because it's not my... I'm going to come up with my 10 favorite literary biographies. And there's all sorts of caveats in there. Basically, if I did this tomorrow, I'd come up with a different 10. And then we'll do a follow-up episode of all the other biographies that are almost my favorites. Because there's a lot of good literary biographies out there. But these are the ones that kind of keep sticking in my mind when people ask me for good literary biographies. Most of them I have. And also I want to talk a little bit. This episode is not brought to you by AKMA, the shadowy nebulous organization that operates at the periphery of our understanding, like a Pynchonist paranoid fantasy. It's an organization that the acronym stands for Amazon, and the Washington Post can kiss my ass because we don't like Jeff Bezos' involvement in any publishing. And yet in this episode, I'm going to do something almost horrible, which is I'm going to say why I like some Kindle books. The one Kindle books I like are the biographies. I don't like to read novels on Kindle very often, but because I keep all these biographies around because I have notes in them and I love the books and I want to reread them. But I don't mind reading nonfiction on Kindle. Don't ask me why, or some other reading device. But unfortunately, I've been doing the Kindles for a long time. So there's a second part of the show, which is one half is my 10 favorite literary biographies, and then the second part of the show, and then the next few episodes are about how to kind of rationalize my too many books. I don't have room for books. So they're and the biographies and nonfiction are what really the biggest books and the bulkiest. Often they're in hardcover and you can't really get paperbacks, and even if you can, the paperbacks are pretty big. So that's the basic premise of the show. It's brought to you by On the Planet of Bold Women, my new novel about a young man who gets what most men think they want, which is the attention of every attractive young woman who comes along. And it's about how that may not turn out as well as you might want it to. And that's called On the Planet of Bold Women. This is the first finished copy. This is my wife's illustrations, my son's design sense, and my sloppy execution, all mixed together. And anyway, some of you actually helped with the copy editing. I put you in the acknowledgments. And you can buy them on Amazon or write me through here or through our Ultimate Beginners Facebook page. I can send you a signed copy for $12. Basically, any one of my books is $12 or $13 signed, sent to you. It's also brought to you by Reading Great Books in the Bathtub. You've seen the videos. You've watched the YouTube channel. Read the book. This is the crossover edition. It's basically the home game. The home game of the Reading Great Books in the Bathtub. And you'll recognize many of the writers that we talked about here, who we talked about in this lovely book with the illustrations this time by B.K. Smith. Cool illustrations, man. Everything about the books has nothing to do with me. 10 quick books. Okay, the two literary biographies that come to my mind most often, and I can't really tell you why. I just remember enjoying them, and I wrote pieces about them many years ago. The two literary biographies I most enjoyed, and I recall the most fondly, are Barefaced Messiah by L. Ron Hubbard. No, not by L. Ron Hubbard. About L. Ron Hubbard, written by the great Russell Miller. I read this book in like 2 days, 30 years ago, and it was vividly enjoyable. And it wasn't just really about the guy who's being a con man and all the way he gets people to follow him along on these weird yachting trips and all the crazy things he does. He sounds like a real character, and many people who knew him personally quite liked him. It's also about a writer who's just an obsessive producer of words. He produced probably more words per human being than almost any other writer. Lots of pulp fiction, lots of science fiction, lots of horror fiction, most of which I haven't been able to read. But anyway, I loved this book, and I still remember it fondly. We also talked a little bit. This is not. I would put this up on one of my. This is a wonderful book, which is Alec Navala Lee's Astounding. It's a biography of John Campbell and the Astounding magazine's stable of writers: Robert Heinlein, L. Ron Hubbard, and Isaac Asimov. I really enjoyed this. This wouldn't make my top 10, but the best parts of this book to me were all the stuff he uses a lot of this in there. It's still my favorite part of both books. The other book I can't find. I put this up as one of my favorite reads as a biography. Was Kenneth Silverman's. I had to look this up because I can't find my copy. His biography of Edgar Allan Poe. It's called Mournful and Never-Ending Remembrance. I wrote a piece about it years and years ago for one of the newspapers in London, and I want to reprint it in one of my future volumes of essays. But it was a terrific read. He really had a great way of talking about this kind of really incredibly sad, screwed up, intelligent man, and the weird fiction he produced, and the kinds of theories of literature and what to do with words, and the importance of sound in Poe's writing. There's Dodo. Dodo's Edgar Allan Poe fan. You probably know that. Anyway, I don't have a copy of it. It's one of those books I never wanted to get rid of. Like there's certain books I say, I'm never getting rid of this book. See, it's too big, it's too heavy, but I love this book so much I can't get rid of it. Same with the Poe. I don't know where the hell it is, though. Here's a weird one. This is a guy named Sheldon M. Novick. As you know, we make a lot of fun of Henry James here at the Bathtub because basically I think he deserves it. I find him kind of boring. I'm not a big Henry James fan, but I picked this book up at my neighbors, the wonderful book people at Scoob Books in London. If you're in London, go to, not Scoob, I'm sorry. Well, Scoob Books was cool too, but Judd Street Books, our buddies at Judd Street Books. I found it there for like $3 or $4 one day, and it's the first of 2 volumes by Sheldon M. Novick about Henry James. And it deals a lot with James's private sexuality and his relationships with men. And that's just a small part of it. But I really enjoyed this book a lot. It made me want to like Henry James. I still couldn't really read. I tried to read Henry James again. I couldn't get through it. But something about this book I really, really enjoyed. I have the sequel over here. It's under a pile of books. And that's called Henry James, The Mature Years. I don't think that ever came out in paperback. Again, one of the problems with my approach to Kindle books is I like to have Kindle books. A lot of great biographies are not available in Kindle. It's pretty annoying. So I don't know if that's available in Kindle. I'm going to close this door for a minute. We have, I don't know if you'd be interested in this, but we have my wife got me this certain portable fan. It's a battery-powered fan. Anyway, it's kind of hot here today, and that's the only tech. That's our only tech in the post-tech decade. It's run by a small squirrel, a very tiny little squirrel. Runs around in there. Here's another one of my favorites. That's 2. We're going to try to keep this to 10 volumes, okay? A Tragic Honesty. We've talked about this before. The life and work of Richard Yates. One of our favorite writers here at the Bathtub. In my lifetime, I've loved Richard Yates. I've reread him a million times. Blake Bailey did a wonderful job with a difficult man. A man I liked, I met and talked to and wrote an essay about and liked him. Was a serious drinker, had serious problems in his life, but he was a wonderful writer, and this is one of my favorite biographies. And if you read it, I show up at the end. I'm like the last person who's quoted it, because I interviewed Yates before he died. If you like a good literary biography, it is sad, but he still got up every day and produced wonderful books. And this is still, not just because I loved his work, but I think Bailey did a really, really good job with that. Here's another one. We talked about Chekhov, the great Anton Chekhov. There's a lot of good biographies, many biographies of Chekhov. But I love Ernest J. Simmons' biography. It's just so beautifully written, so compassionate towards the man himself. Very extensive, lots of details. Never feel like some biographies where they just seem to have just transcribed every piece of data that they could find on this writer. He really has a good narrative sense of this man's life. And if you like it, just a good biography, whether you like him or not, a terrific read. I like that book a lot. What is that? We got 1, 2, 3, 4. Just talked about this recently. I just read this the past few weeks. Jeffrey Wall's Flaubert: A Life. I think Jeffrey Wall just writes really well, and he writes with a kind of love for language and paragraphs and sentences that you see you see he's inherited from his love for Flaubert. It's a shortish biography. It's not one of these big fat biographies like some of our biographies are. It's fairly shortish, and it's just a terrific read. I love Jeffrey Wall, and I like his work on that biography. I'm gonna tie this up now, and we'll do part 2 in a minute, because I don't like these things to go too long. But number 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is Pierre Assoulin's biography of Simenon. George Simenon, one of our favorites. Isn't that a beautiful cover? It's a picture. It's Knopf's beautiful books. And it was written in French, I believe, and it was translated into English. It's the most extensive biography, I think, published of Simenon that's available in English. And when I was writing a piece about Simenon 10 years ago, 8 or 10 years ago, I read this and read it all through in a few days. It's just he does a good job, again, of dealing with a complex man and the daily. Again, most writers are kind of boring. You may find this of interest, but writers lead pretty boring lives. I mean, they're not all Anton Chekhov or Dostoevsky, where they're going, saving people's lives from dysentery or going in and out of prison for political crimes. They're just kind of boring guys like Simenon, who's just spent all his life either sleeping with women or writing books, and then playing with his kids. The 3 things he seems to have done. But it does a really good job of kind of following this long, insanely productive George Simenon. I'm going to stop that there because I don't like these to go too long. We'll do part 2. It's part 1. It's part 2. I'm going to get to the second part in a minute. Happy bathing. I'll post these fairly quickly, just for what the heck. Okay, bye.